A rhyme about roses, ashes, and falling down has been sung by children for over a century, and its most popular meaning might not even be true. Many nursery rhymes carry origin stories tied to real historical events, but not every one of those connections holds up under actual scholarly scrutiny. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which dark origins are documented fact, which are folklore reconstruction, and which are simply popular claims that don't survive real research. Start with Ring Around the Rosie, popularly said to describe the Great Plague of London in 1665, or earlier plague outbreaks before that. In that reading, the Ring of Roses represents a telltale plague rash. The posies represent protective herbs, and the ashes represent cremation. We all fall down in that same interpretation represents death itself, the final line of the rhyme. That plague interpretation circulates constantly in popular culture, repeated so often it feels like settled fact. But folklorists Alice Barrand Gom and Peter Opie both noted something that undercuts the whole theory. The earliest printed version dates only from the 1880s in the United States. That version may simply describe a children's circle dance, with no plague connection at all. So the honest verdict here is that the plague interpretation is plausible and genuinely influential, but it is not definitively established by the actual evidence. Compare that uncertainty to Mary Had a Little Lamb, a rhyme with one of the cleanest documented origins on this entire list. Sarah Josepha Hale published the poem in 1830, inside her collection Poems for Our Children. It was inspired by a real episode in Sterling, Massachusetts, involving a young girl named Mary Sawyer. Mary Sawyer had a pet lamb that actually followed her to school in 1815, a documented real-world event. This rhyme's provenance is unusual precisely because it has an identifiable author, a documented date, and a confirmed real event behind it. That means the dark origin tradition attaches to it far more weakly than to almost every other rhyme in this video. Now to London Bridge is Falling Down, which has been associated with Norse Viking raids dating back to 1014. It's also been linked to later medieval rebuilding efforts after repeated fires damaged the bridge over the centuries. The rhyme's builded-up structure, with the phrase "my fair lady," is sometimes tied to human sacrifice motifs found in other cultures' foundation myths. That specific sacrifice connection is genuinely speculative, but the broader plausible interpretation is that the rhyme remembers real historical destruction cycles. Humpty Dumpty is sometimes connected to a large cannon used during the English Civil War in the mid-17th century. In that reading, All the King's Horses and All the King's Men describes a piece of military equipment that simply couldn't be recovered once broken. That interpretation is plausible, but not definitively proven, because the rhyme existed in various forms in 18th century English chapbooks that may predate the Civil War entirely. Jack and Jill has been linked to the reign of King Charles I, with Jack representing a diminished crown after the execution of his chief minister. Jill, in that same reading, represents the loss of crown revenue, and the bucket of water may symbolize tax revenue itself. That's one of several competing interpretations, credible but genuinely not definitive by scholarly standards. Mary, quite contrary, has been associated with Queen Mary I of England, whose persecution of Protestants earned her the nickname Bloody Mary. Some historians read the silver bells and cockle shells in the rhyme as coded references to torture instruments used against early Protestants. Alternate readings tie the same rhyme instead to Mary, Queen of Scots, or to simple royal garden imagery with no dark meaning at all. Which interpretation feels right genuinely depends on which historical Mary the singer had in mind when the verse first spread. Three Blind Mice has been associated with Queen Mary I's burning of 3 Protestant bishops, with the farmer's wife representing the queen herself. The 3 mice in that reading represent the 3 executed bishops directly. That connection is widely cited across pop culture, but again, it's not definitively proven by the historical record. Rockabye Baby has been controversially tied to the young sons of King James II and their safety during the political upheavals of their early lives. But the rhyme's probable origin lies in a general English lullaby tradition, which makes the royal family connection genuinely speculative rather than confirmed. Baa Baa Black Sheep sits on far more solid documented ground than most of the rhymes so far in this video. It reflects the medieval English wool tax established by King Edward I in 1275. That tax allocated a specific share of wool revenue to 3 parties: the Crown, the church, and the farmers themselves. Pop Goes the Weasel has a documented linguistic origin, too, rooted at least partly in Cockney street slang. Weasel and stoat is actual Cockney rhyming slang for coat, a real linguistic pattern from working-class London. The song's references to a pawned watch and visits to establishments of questionable reputation are consistent with real 19th-century London working-class life. So across these 10 rhymes, you've just heard 3 completely different categories of evidence, and it's worth naming them clearly. The first category is documented fact, like Mary Had a Little Lamb's 1830 publication, and Baa Baa Black Sheep's 1275 wool tax. The second category is plausible but unproven interpretation, like the Humpty Dumpty canon theory and the Jack and Jill Civil War reading. The third category is genuinely speculative connection, like Rockabye Baby's royal family theory and the human sacrifice reading of London Bridge. Notice something else across all 10 of these rhymes. The ones with the most dramatic, dark backstories tend to sit in that second or third category. Ring Around the Rosie's plague theory, arguably the most famous dark nursery rhyme claim of all, only traces back in print to the 1880s. Meanwhile, the rhyme with the cleanest, most boring documented origin, Mary Had a Little Lamb, barely gets repeated as a dark origin story at all. That pattern isn't a coincidence. Dramatic, unproven theories spread further than quiet, documented facts, because drama is simply more shareable. Here's the honest summary this entire video has been building toward. Several of these rhymes do have plausible historical roots worth taking seriously. Some of the most popular dark origin claims remain genuinely debated inside academic folklore literature, not settled fact at all. And these rhymes survived into their present form at least partly because they worked as songs and games for children. That survival happened independent of how much original historical meaning any individual rhyme actually preserved along the way. So the next time someone confidently tells you Ring Around the Rosie is definitely about the plague, you now know the actual state of the evidence. Plausible, influential, repeated constantly, but not definitively established by the folklorists who have actually traced its printed history. That distinction between a compelling story and a proven one is exactly what separates real folklore scholarship from a viral internet claim. 10 rhymes, 3 categories of evidence, and only a small handful with the kind of documented paper trail that Mary Had a Little Lamb actually has. That's the real dark truth here, not that every rhyme hides a hidden tragedy, but that most of us never checked which ones actually do. If separating documented history from popular myth interests you, there's another video on this channel doing the exact same fact check on a completely different set of childhood stories. Go watch that one next, because the gap between what everyone repeats and what's actually proven shows up far beyond just nursery rhymes.